Imagine waking up tomorrow morning. The sun is streaming through your window, but there's this eerie silence.
Right, no traffic outside.
Exactly. There is no blaring alarm clock shattering your sleep cycle. There's no frantic rush to iron a shirt or pack a lunch or gulp down a lukewarm coffee while staring at your watch.
Just a totally different morning rhythm.
Yeah. And most importantly, that heavy, anxious knot in your stomach. You know the one.
Oh, yeah.
The one you get when you think about the morning commute, the gridlock traffic, the endlessly crowded trains. It is completely gone.
Because commuting just isn't a thing anymore.
Right. In this scenario, the word commuting doesn't even exist in your daily vocabulary. Imagine a world where where the act of trading your finite time and physical energy just to survive.
Just to pay rent.
Yeah, just to put a roof over your head and food on the table. Imagine that is no longer a mandatory condition of human existence.
It's purely optional.
Instead, working is entirely a choice. You only engage in tasks or projects or passions that you truly desire and genuinely enjoy.
I mean, it sounds like the opening scene of some utopian science fiction novel,
All
right?
right, it really does.
The idea of waking up without the fundamental pressure of survival is, well, it's something humanity has dreamt of since the agrarian revolution. But the research and the financial models we're dissecting today suggest this isn't fiction at all.
Not even close.
It is a highly probable near-future reality. Today, we're doing a deep dive into an extensive analysis of the Optimus revolution.
The humanoid robot from Tesla.
Exactly. We're looking at how Tesla's humanoid robot and really the broader wave of advanced physical automation that it represents is acting as the imminent catalyst for the greatest shift in wealth, labor, and daily human life that our species has ever witnessed.
It's massive.
We're transitioning from an era where human capital was the primary engine of the global economy to an era where human attention and enjoyment take center stage.
I have to admit, when I first looked at the scope of these sources, part of me thought this sounded a bit too utopian.
Sure, it's a natural reaction.
Because eradicating manual labor entirely. I mean, we've heard promises of automation freeing up our time for decades.
Since the first computers.
Right, and yet everyone listening to this is probably still working 40-plus hours a week. But the math in this report paints a very specific, almost inescapable picture of how we actually cross that threshold.
The math doesn't lie.
And that is the exact mission for our deep dive today. We aren't just here to marvel at cool robotics. We are going to track the money.
That's the key.
We are going to explore how this technological leap triggers a massive, unprecedented wave of new wealth. And for you, the listener, we are going to pinpoint the exact sectors.
The specific industries.
Yeah, and the very mechanics you need to understand to capitalize on this once-in-a-civilization investment opportunity. We're focusing heavily on delivering actionable investment insights based on this paradigm shift.
Because whenever there is a fundamental restructuring of how the world operates at the macroeconomic level, there is a massive corresponding restructuring of where capital flows.
It happened with the Industrial Revolution.
Exactly. The Industrial Revolution aggressively shifted wealth away from landowning aristocrats and consolidated it into the hands of factory-owning industrialists. And then the Digital Revolution,
Which we've all lived through.
right, which shifted massive amounts of global wealth to tech platforms and software aggregators. This Optimus revolution will shift wealth based on a completely new paradigm.
The liberation from physical labor.
Yes, and the subsequent explosion of human leisure time. To understand where the smart money is going, we have to understand the fundamental mathematics driving the change at the ground level.
So let's get right into the numbers.
Okay.
Let's unpack this. The entire foundation of this future economy rests on a very specific mathematical equation presented in our sources. It's the baseline metric for everything we're about to discuss.
42 versus 2.
$42 versus $2.
That is the fundamental catalyst for the revolution. Let's break down exactly what those numbers represent in corporate accounting terms.
Do it.
The $42 represents the estimated hourly value of human labor in a developed economy. And it's vital to understand that this isn't just a worker's base wage.
Right. Nobody's taking home $42 an hour baseline at a warehouse.
Exactly. When a corporation models the cost of a human, they are looking at a massive aggregate of expenses.
It's the fully loaded cost.
Yes, it encapsulates payroll taxes, comprehensive healthcare benefits, liability insurance, paid time off, maternity and paternity leave, and just the massive overhead of human resources departments just to manage the workforce.
Not to mention the inherent inefficiencies of human biology, right?
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, we need breaks, we get sick. A human worker might have a terrible night's sleep and operate at maybe 60% capacity the next day.
Or get injured on the job.
Exactly. And then there's the cost of training, the cost of turnover when someone quits, the physical limitations of how much weight a person can actually lift safely.
It adds up fast.
When you aggregate all of that across a massive logistics network or a global supply chain, human labor isn't just expensive. It is a massive friction point. It's a bottleneck.
That's the perfect word for it. Human capital involves tremendous operating expenditure, or OpEx. Now, we contrast that with the other side of the equation.
The $2.
The $2.
Why?
That is the projected operating cost for the Optimus robot per hour. We are looking at a $40 delta per hour per worker.
That is just staggering.
And that $2 isn't a wage, obviously. It is essentially the amortized cost of the hardware, routine maintenance, and the electricity required to charge the battery.
A $40 difference per hour. If you extrapolate that across a factory of, say, 5,000 workers, the numbers become completely surreal.
You're talking billions saved.
But I'm looking at these figures and trying to reconcile how quickly this actually happens. You know, a corporation doesn't just flip a switch overnight and fire everyone.
They don't flip a switch overnight, no.
Yeah.
But capital markets are incredibly ruthless when it comes to efficiency. When a business can replace a $42 an hour highly variable expense with a $2 an hour highly predictable expense, you don't just see a slight bump in quarterly earnings. You see a total paradigm shift in the marginal cost of production.
Because if you don't do it, your competitor will.
Exactly. Any company that adopts this technology will instantly undercut the pricing of any competitor still relying on human labor. It forces adoption through sheer market survival. This represents the starting gun for what the analysis terms the liberation from labor.
And the analysis is very clear about where this starts physically. We aren't talking about Optimus sitting at a desk doing tax returns or writing marketing copy.
No, the AI handles that. This is physical.
Right. The physical humanoid robot takes over a very specific triad of manual labor. The hard, the dangerous, and the boring.
Those are the immediate target markets. We are talking about the heavy lifting on construction sites, the hyper-repetitive assembly line tasks in automotive manufacturing.
Dangerous welding in extreme or toxic environments.
Yes, the handling of hazardous chemicals and the endless, physically degrading sorting in massive logistics and fulfillment warehouses.
Just brutal work.
From a biological standpoint, these are jobs that the human musculoskeletal system was never truly designed to do for 8 to 12 hours a day, year after year.
It literally breaks people down.
By handing these tasks over to a machine that operates at roughly 5% of the cost of a human, we fundamentally alter the concept of industrial output.
Let's dig deeper into the output side, because the math gets even crazier when you look beyond just the hourly rate. As the research details, robots don't just cost less. They operate on a completely different physical reality than we do.
A totally different paradigm.
I want to really unpack the compounding effect of a 24/7 error-free production cycle, because this seems like the lever that breaks the current economic model wide open.
It is the ultimate lever. To truly grasp the investment implications, we have to look at how a factory actually runs today. A human being works, at best, an 8 to 10-hour shift. They require a mandated lunch break, 2 15-minute rest periods, and eventually they have to go home and sleep.
Thank God.
That means a factory needs to hire 3 separate shifts of workers just to keep the machines running 24 hours a day. Every time a shift changes, there is a handover period, a loss of momentum, and an increased risk of error.
Humans require weekends. They require holidays.
And a robot doesn't need to take a 20-minute coffee break to complain about management.
Or scroll through social media in the bathroom.
Precisely. Optimus operates 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. It doesn't experience muscular fatigue.
Its visual recognition software doesn't degrade at 3 a.m. like a human inspector's eyes might.
It never complains about poor working conditions. It doesn't require a heated or air-conditioned factory floor, and it never organizes a labor strike. But the most profound compounding effect comes from the network learning and the mathematical perfection of execution.
The unified software updates. This is huge. If one human worker figures out a slightly faster way to attach a bolt, it might take months to retrain the entire global workforce of that company.
Yes, but if one Optimus unit in Berlin uses its neural network to optimize a welding path, that data is instantly uploaded to the cloud. And within seconds, Every single Optimus unit in Shanghai, Texas, and Mexico is executing that exact same optimized weld.
It's a hive mind of efficiency.
Furthermore, once a task is programmed, the robot executes it with absolute zero variance, every single time.
Zero errors.
Zero errors, zero physical defects, zero rework required. In traditional manufacturing, quality assurance and the reworking of defective products account for massive profit losses. You are entirely eliminating that inefficiency.
So if we extrapolate this to global supply chains, we're talking about the dark factory concept becoming the absolute standard.
That's a dark factory, yeah.
Imagine a massive manufacturing facility that literally never turns its lights on because the robots don't need the visible light spectrum to see. They just navigate via spatial sensors.
You strip out the cafeteria, the bathrooms, the HVAC systems, the parking lots.
The footprint of a factory shrinks while the output explodes.
The implications for supply chain elasticity are staggering. Right now, global logistics have severe bottlenecks based on human limitations. Port workers, truck drivers, warehouse sorters.
We saw how fragile that was a few years ago.
If you eliminate those biological bottlenecks, you achieve a continuous, uninterrupted flow of production and distribution. You are effectively multiplying the total output of a single facility by a factor of 3 or 4 simply by running it flawlessly around the clock.
While simultaneously slashing the operating costs by 95%.
Exactly. This explosion in overall productivity means that the total volume of goods the world can produce will skyrocket, unconstrained by the availability of human hands.
Which naturally brings us to the macroeconomic question, because a listener hearing this might be thinking, okay, the corporate profit margins are going to be astronomical. But if millions of people are no longer employed in these manual labor jobs, what does this mean for the everyday economy?
It's the big question.
How does a regular person survive if traditional wage labor is evaporating?
That is the core economic friction point, and it sets off a fascinating, almost paradoxical chain reaction. As corporations are freed from their massive labor cost burdens, their profit generation does indeed reach unprecedented levels. But we don't operate in a monopoly.
Right.
We operate in a highly competitive global market. Those cost savings don't just sit in a corporate treasury indefinitely. They trigger a massive deflationary spiral in consumer prices.
We usually hear the word deflation used as a terrifying economic term, right, associated with depressions.
Yes, mostly.
But we need to distinguish between bad deflation, which is caused by a collapse in demand, and what this report is describing, which sounds like technologically driven good deflation.
That's a crucial distinction. Bad deflation is when nobody has money, so prices drop because nobody can buy anything, leading to mass bankruptcies. What the Optimus revolution triggers is supply-side deflation.
A massive expansion of the supply curve.
Yes. If it costs an automotive company 90% less to manufacture an electric vehicle, and their competitor achieves the exact same savings, they're going to compete on price to capture market share.
The retail price of the car plummets.
The cost of producing a smartphone, a pair of shoes, or the construction of a modular home falls drastically. We've seen Moore's law applied to the cost of computing power for decades.
Computing gets exponentially cheaper and faster.
We're about to see Moore's law applied to physical goods and physical labor.
So the everyday person's dollar suddenly stretches infinitely further. The cost of living essentially collapses. The fundamental goods required for modern life, basic housing, transportation, food logistics, clothing, they become incredibly cheap to produce and acquire.
We transition from economy fundamentally defined by scarcity, where human labor is the ultimate limiting factor in how much we can build and harvest, to an economy of hyperabundance.
Hyperabundance.
And this resulting price stability, this incredible technological deflation in the cost of basic goods, forms the necessary bedrock for profound societal safety nets. The sources specifically point out that this macro-level abundance is the prerequisite for implementing systems like universal basic income.
I know the moment the phrase universal basic income, or UBI, is mentioned, people immediately filter it through their own political biases.
Literally.
It becomes a debate about socialism versus capitalism, but looking at the source material, this isn't framed as a political ideology at all. It's framed as a mathematical necessity to keep the entire system from collapsing on itself.
It is absolutely crucial to view this purely through an analytical, macroeconomic lens. This is not about political favoritism. It is about the mechanics of a consumer economy.
Right.
The fundamental premise of capitalism is that you need a consumer to purchase the good that the producer makes. If robotic productivity drives the cost of essential goods down to near zero, the financial threshold required to sustain a human life drops dramatically.
But if robots have replaced the wage-earning capacity of the masses, who buys the incredibly cheap goods?
Exactly. UBI, in this context, is a structural mechanism for economic liquidity.
It's maintaining the velocity of money.
That's exactly it. The massive, unprecedented wealth generated by this hyper-productive, automated economy must be partially recycled back to the consumer base to ensure a baseline standard of living, which in turn ensures a baseline of aggregate demand.
Because if nobody has any money to buy the $2 robots products, the factory goes bust anyway.
You have near-infinite supply created by robots. Therefore, you must engineer a baseline of demand from humans to keep the economic gears turning. It is an infrastructural requirement for the new era, no different than building roads to accommodate cars.
So if we accept this premise that the baseline of survival is guaranteed, that the cost of living is pennies on the dollar compared to today, and a basic income provides that floor, the psychological shift is profound.
It rewrites the human operating system.
For literally thousands of years, the human condition has been almost entirely defined by the struggle to survive. You hunt to eat. You farm to survive the winter. You commute to the office to pay the mortgage. If that equation is broken, the existential dread of making a living is removed.
We step into a state of genuine, unprecedented freedom. The source material refers to this as humanity being freed from essential labor. And this raises what might be the single most important sociological and economic question of the 21st century.
What's that?
If the fundamental problem of survival is permanently solved by automation, what do humans actually do with their time?
Nature abhors a vacuum. If you suddenly hand 8 billion people an extra 40, 50, or 60 hours of free time every single week, they aren't just going to sit on the couch and stare at the drywall. That energy has to go somewhere.
It does, and the analysis provides a very clear trajectory based on Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Once the foundational levels of the hierarchy, food, shelter, security, are permanently secured by robotic labor, human energy naturally shifts upward.
We turn our collective focus toward higher level needs.
Self-actualization, community, and the pursuit of enjoyment.
The report calls this the transition into the enjoyment economy. And from an investment standpoint, this is where the conversation gets incredibly lucrative.
This is where the capital flows.
If the production of physical goods, the cars, the microwaves, the sneakers, is completely commoditized by $2 an hour robots, the profit margins on those goods will eventually race to zero. So where does the real value lie in a post-scarcity world?
The real value, the true premium of the future, lies entirely in the areas that possess what the analysis calls the human premium.
The human premium, meaning the specific traits and outputs that a $2 an hour robot simply cannot replicate, regardless of how advanced its language models or physical actuators become.
Correct. A humanoid robot can flawlessly assemble a transmission, and an AI can instantly translate a textbook, but a robot cannot genuinely feel heartbreak.
It can't experience the soaring triumph of overcoming physical limits.
Exactly. It cannot possess an authentic human soul or empathize with human sorrow. Therefore, the economic domains that rely entirely on human creativity, human emotion, and human-to-human connection will see explosive exponential growth.
The massive surplus of capital and human attention will flood into these areas.
The source identifies 3 massive sectors that will form the pillars of this new enjoyment economy: art, sports, and entertainment.
Let's do a deep dive into each of these big 3 sectors, because the definitions of these categories are expanding wildly. When we talk about art capturing massive capital, we aren't just talking about a renaissance of people painting with oils on canvas or sculpting marble.
While traditional fine art, classical music, and live theater will always hold immense premium value, precisely because of the raw human element behind them, the massive economic boom will occur in the evolution of digital creation. The source explicitly highlights the exponential trajectory of webtoons, web novels, and digital art ecosystems. These are highly accessible, deeply engaging forms of serialized storytelling that are already consuming massive amounts of human attention, particularly in Asia, and are rapidly expanding globally.
But wait, if we're talking about digital art and text, aren't those the exact things generative AI is currently getting incredibly good at producing?
Yes, they are.
How does human art survive if an AI can generate a comic book in 10 seconds? The text points out the emergence of new art genres combining AI technology, so it doesn't see AI as a destroyer of human art.
It views AI as a democratizing force multiplier for human imagination. The AI might help render the complex background image or translate the text into 50 languages instantly, or even generate the base code for an interactive novel.
Taking the friction out of creation.
But the core architecture of the story, the creative spark, the nuanced emotional resonance of the characters, the lived human experience that informs the narrative that remains uniquely human. When you remove the steep technical barriers to entry, anyone with a profoundly compelling human story can become a globally recognized creator overnight.
That implies a massive explosion in the sheer volume of art.
It does. And the analysis points to the resulting rise of highly personalized, bespoke art services. Because humans will have an abundance of free time to explore their own complex psychology, their tastes will become hyper-niche.
Like perfectly targeted to the individual.
Imagine literature, interactive music, or digital art that is dynamically tailored to your specific emotional state on a Tuesday afternoon, guided by a human artist who understands your specific demographics' anxieties. The demand for art that speaks directly and intimately to the individual, rather than mass-market broadcast media, will skyrocket.
Okay, so that covers the mental and emotional stimulation through art. Let's pivot to the physical body. The second massive sector is sports, and honestly, this makes perfect sense.
It really does.
If you are sitting around all day, relieved of all physical labor, you are going to crave physical exertion. You want to feel your heart rate elevate, or at least experience the visceral communal thrill of watching another human push their physical limits.
The visceral connection is the entire value proposition. A robot running a marathon in 45 minutes isn't economically or emotionally interesting.
No, it's just a machine doing what it's programmed to do.
Exactly. A robot feels no lactic acid buildup, no exhaustion, no triumph of the human will. The value of sports is the shared empathy of the human struggle. As the global population acquires massive amounts of free time, engagement with professional sports, both as spectators and as deeply invested, emotionally committed fans, will surge to unprecedented levels.
But the definition of sports broadens significantly here. The source specifically highlights the mainstream explosion of esports.
Esports is already massive among younger demographics, but in a world with unlimited free time, it becomes a central, unifying pillar of global culture. It's the perfect synthesis of human strategy, reflexes, and digital environments.
It merges the deeply ingrained competitive human spirit with infinite, unconstrained digital arenas. Beyond viewing, the analysis predicts rapid, sustained growth in the personal health and participatory leisure sports market.
When your body is no longer broken down and exhausted by mandatory manual labor, you view your body as an instrument to be optimized and enjoyed.
People will pour capital and time into leisure sports. Tennis, golf, rock climbing, martial arts, not for any utilitarian survival purpose, but for the pure joy of movement, mastery, and self-improvement.
And the technology overlay here is fascinating. The text mentions the integration of VR and AR, virtual and augmented reality, creating entirely new, immersive sports experiences.
You aren't just watching a basketball game on a screen.
You're putting on a headset and virtually sitting courtside, or even stepping onto the digital court to compete in a globally connected, physically demanding virtual reality league right from your living room.
It fundamentally bridges the gap between physical exertion and digital scalability, which leads us perfectly into the third and most expansive pillar of the enjoyment economy: entertainment.
Entertainment is the ultimate sponge for freed-up human time. The source lists the core mediums we all familiar with: movies, dramas, games, and OTT platforms, the massive streaming services that pipe content directly into our homes.
If you suddenly inject an extra 40 hours a week into the lives of billions of people time that used to be spent commuting, working in a cubicle, or operating a forklift, they are going to consume narrative stories, interactive games, and immersive media at a velocity we have never historically recorded.
But the research suggests this consumption won't just be passive, right?
Right, we aren't just going to sit on the couch and watch television for 12 hours a day. The analysis elaborates on the integration of these entertainment mediums into the metaverse.
We are moving from the 2D era of watching a story on a flat screen to the 3D era of inhabiting a shared, persistent digital world. The metaverse, in this context, is where entertainment, social interaction, and digital commerce blend seamlessly.
You don't just watch a movie. You explore the universe of that movie with your friends' avatars.
Furthermore, the market will become incredibly fragmented and segmented, driven not just by massive Hollywood studios, but by individual creators.
Like the current creator economy, but supercharged. Because every single individual will have the necessary time to both master complex creation tools and consume incredibly niche content.
Precisely. And this hyper-engagement fuels the massive, exponentially growing power of the fandom economy, which is a crucial concept the analysis hinges on when we transition to looking at how to actually invest in this future.
The fandom economy is the ultimate monetization of deep emotional human connection.
Which brings us to the absolute core of our deep dive today. We've painted this incredibly detailed macro picture of the future. The $2 robots are handling the global supply chain, the cost of physical living has plummeted, the baseline of human survival is secured, and humanity is pouring its heart, soul, and capital into art, sports, and entertainment.
The massive question for you, the listener, right now is how do you position yourself? How do you invest your capital today to capture the wealth generated by this impending economy of enjoyment?
This is where the theoretical economics become actionable investment strategy. If the 42 versus 2 robotics revolution is the underlying engine generating the wealth, these specific entertainment and leisure sectors are the direct beneficiaries.
Delivering these investment insights is why we're here.
Based on the deep analysis of the source text, we can categorize the optimal investment landscape into 4 distinct, highly lucrative pillars. Each of these pillars represents a crucial layer of infrastructure in the new era.
Let's break these down one by one. Pillar 1, platform companies. The source indicates these are essentially the safest, most obvious macro bets. Why are platforms considered the bedrock of this investment strategy?
Because platforms control the ultimate choke point distribution. If humanity suddenly possesses billions of newly freed up hours every single week, the companies that own the digital pipelines delivering entertainment to those hours hold unimaginable pricing power.
They are the gatekeepers of the attention economy.
The source specifically names Netflix, Disney+, and YouTube as the behemoths dominating the OTT and global video space.
When you look at the business models of these platforms, their moats are virtually impenetrable. Building a massive, globally licensed content library, establishing a flawless, low-latency content delivery network across every continent, and creating a sticky, algorithmic user interface that is not something a well-funded startup can just replicate in a garage.
It requires hundreds of billions of dollars in capex over decades. When human leisure time multiplies dramatically, people generally default to the path of least resistance.
They don't go searching the dark, uncurated corners of the internet for entertainment.
No, they turn on their smart TV, they open YouTube, they boot up Disney+. These dominant platforms essentially become the default operating systems for human free time. They capture the attention, and where attention flows, massive capital follows.
And the moat extends beyond just asynchronous video streaming. The analysis explicitly includes metaverse platforms like Roblox in this first pillar. I think a lot of people still dismiss Roblox as just a blocky game for children, but the underlying economics are staggering.
Dismissing Roblox as a game is a fundamental misunderstanding of their business model. Roblox is a platform infrastructure. It is a persistent digital nation where millions of users concurrently create, socialize, and consume shared experiences.
When you own the virtual ground, the digital real estate upon which the enjoyment economy is constructed, you extract a toll on every single interaction, every digital garment sold, every hour of attention monetized.
Platform companies are the digital landlords of the post-labor era.
Okay, so pillar 1 is the distribution, the digital real estate. But a pipeline is useless if there is nothing valuable flowing through it. That brings us to pillar 2, content creation companies. The source places massive emphasis on the power of IP, intellectual property.
If the platform is the pipeline, the IP is the oil. The entities actually manufacturing the cultural resonance, the studios, the visionary creators, the music labels, hold immense leverage because they create the emotional attachment that drives the user to the platform in the first place.
The analysis requires us to specifically examine the KPOP industry as the ultimate optimized example of this model. They explicitly mention agencies like HYBE and JYP.
I find this fascinating. Why K-pop? What makes a company like HYBE or JYP so uniquely positioned to capture wealth in a future dominated by humanoid robots and automation?
Because K-pop has perfectly engineered and commercialized the fandom economy we touched on earlier, traditional Western music models relied heavily on massive passive audiences. You hear a song on the radio, you might buy a concert ticket once every 3 years.
K-pop doesn't just sell an audio file.
Right. It engineers a highly immersive, multi-layered, continuous emotional connection between a highly active fan and the artist.
It's an entire ecosystem of engagement.
Exactly. It involves not just music releases, but highly produced behind-the-scenes video content, interactive interactive proprietary apps like Weverse, where fans communicate directly with artists, digital and physical merchandise, and a deeply cultivated shared community identity.
The ARPU, the average revenue per user in a dedicated K-pop fandom, is astronomical compared to a passive music listener.
It is the ultimate manifestation of the human premium. A generative AI can synthesize a catchy pop beat in 3 seconds, but an AI cannot inspire a global army of fans to deeply care about its personal journey, its struggles, its trainee days, and its triumphs.
You cannot form a genuine parasocial relationship with a line of code.
The emotional monetization in this model is unparalleled and fundamentally immune to automation. As people have more free time and fewer physical stressors, their psychological capacity to engage deeply in these fandoms, to invest their emotional energy into an artist's narrative, increases exponentially.
But Pillar 2 extends beyond music. The source also points to webtoon studios, massive AAA game developers, and high-end drama production studios.
These entities create the complex characters and sprawling universes that capture human imagination.
Possessing globally beloved IP is equivalent to owning a gold mine in an economy where human attention is the singular most valuable currency.
So we have the digital platforms delivering the content, and we have the IP studios generating the emotional resonance. But at the end of the day, humans are still physical, biological creatures. We still have sensory bodies.
And that leads us to Pillar 3, experience-providing companies.
The source highlights an explosive desire for physical, visceral human experiences that a robot absolutely cannot provide.
This is a crucial economic counterbalance. When digital abundance becomes the ubiquitous norm, when you can summon any movie, any song, or any virtual world instantly for pennies, physical scarcity becomes the ultimate premium luxury.
The economics of physical, tactile experience will skyrocket.
The analysis segments this into several highly lucrative areas: premium theme parks, live performance and concert organizers, luxury travel agencies, and bespoke, personalized hobby and leisure services.
Think about the economics of a live concert. You can sit in your living room with a state-of-the-art VR headset and perfectly calibrated spatial audio, listening to a flawless studio recording of your favorite band.
But millions of people will still eagerly pay hundreds, sometimes thousands of dollars to go to a physical stadium, deal with traffic, stand shoulder to shoulder with 50,000 sweaty strangers.
And feel the physical bass reverberate in their chest while watching a fragile human being perform live on stage.
Because the friction is part of the value. It is a shared, irreplicable, deeply human moment. A live concert is proof of presence.
Theme parks offer a similar value proposition. They provide a massive physical immersion into a fantasy world that you can actually touch, smell, and physically ride.
Luxury travel agencies will thrive exponentially because travel is fundamentally about authentic, serendipitous human discovery. Tasting unoptimized local street food, navigating the chaos of a new city, feeling a different climate on your skin.
And as we have vastly more time to cultivate specific niche interests, personalized hobby services will become massive industries. I'm thinking about expert guides taking you through artisanal woodworking, deep-sea diving expeditions, or intensive culinary masterclasses.
The common thread binding Pillar 3 together is that these are irreplicable, physical, sensory experiences that demand human presence.
Precisely. Which brings us to the final piece of the investment puzzle. Pillar 4, related technology enablers. If Pillars 1 through 3 are the gold miners in this new enjoyment economy, Pillar 4 represents the companies selling the picks and shovels.
During any massive gold rush, the people who consistently generate the most reliable wealth aren't necessarily the ones digging in the dirt hoping to strike a vein of gold. They are the businesses selling the tools, the denim jeans, and the infrastructure required to mine.
In this future economy, what are the picks and shovels?
The picks and shovels are the immense underlying technology stacks required to make these rich, globally scaled entertainment experiences possible. The source explicitly lists 3 critical domains: VR and AR hardware, metaverse server infrastructure, and advanced AI.
Let's break down why these are such massive bottlenecks. Streaming a 4K movie on Netflix takes some bandwidth, but it's fundamentally a one-way street. The server sends you a packet of data. The metaverse seems like an entirely different architectural beast.
It is orders of magnitude more complex. To create the deeply immersive, persistent digital worlds of a true metaverse, you need massive leaps in virtual and augmented reality optics and battery efficiency.
But more importantly, you need the back-end server infrastructure, the cloud compute power to host millions of simultaneous users in a shared space without a single millisecond of latency.
If you and 10,000 other people are attending a virtual concert, the server must calculate and render the exact physical movement of every single avatar in real time relative to every other user's perspective.
The required compute power for that synchronous rendering is astronomical.
It requires a total overhaul of global data center architecture. And layered on top of that, you need advanced AI algorithms to dynamically generate these digital environments, to personalize the content flow to each individual user, and to manage the staggering exabytes of data being produced every second.
These technology enablers, the semiconductor designers, the cloud computing behemoths, the optical lens manufacturers, are the foundational invisible layer upon which the platforms, the IP, and the digital experiences operate.
Investing in these tech enablers is investing in the very physical architecture of the future human experience.
This is a phenomenal roadmap. Let's take a step back and synthesize the massive macroeconomic paradigm shift we've just unpacked for you. We started with a simple, stark mathematical inevitability. $42 an hour for human manual labor versus $2 an hour for relentless, perfect robotic labor.
We traced how that massive, inescapable cost reduction fundamentally destroys traditional forced manual labor. But simultaneously, through the application of 24/7 production and software-driven optimization, it triggers an explosion in global supply chain productivity and a massive deflationary drop in the physical cost of living.
And we followed the logical consequences of that newfound hyperabundance. With basic human needs met cheaply, and the ancient burden of forced utilitarian labor lifted, human time, energy, and attention shift entirely to the enjoyment economy.
The massive pursuit of personalized art, the visceral thrill of sports, and the endless immersion of digital and physical entertainment.
The core message for you, listening right now, is a profound reframing of the future. The end of labor, as we know it, is not a dystopian concept. It isn't something to fear or resist.
According to the rigorous economic analysis we've explored today, it is the beginning of a journey toward genuine human happiness, unprecedented creative output, and ultimate psychological freedom. It is the elevation of the human experience above mere survival.
And from a highly practical financial standpoint, getting back to the investment insights we promised, the message is urgency. The 42 versus 2 revolution isn't decades away. It is already underway. The prototypes are walking in labs. The neural network code is being refined. The supply chains are quietly preparing for the massive capital expenditure shift.
The call to action is to recognize this paradigm shift before it is fully recognized and priced into the broader public market. The key to capturing generational wealth is to preemptively position your capital in the exact sectors that feed this impending enjoyment era.
The platform monopolies holding the distribution, the IP creators engineering the deep emotional fandoms, the physical providers of premium human experiences, and the tech enablers building the massive digital infrastructure to support it all.
It fundamentally turns what could be a scary, disruptive technological shift into a clear, actionable roadmap for incredible financial opportunity and human flourishing.
It does. And as we conclude our deep dive into this remarkable source material, I want to leave you with a lingering, highly personal question to ponder on your own. We've discussed at length how trillions of dollars of global capital will violently flow into art, sports, and entertainment as humanity seeks connection and joy in a post-labor world. But think about your own life, intimately and specifically.
If tomorrow morning an Optimus robot woke up and permanently took over all your essential tasks, all your chores, all your mandatory economic output to pay your bills, what uniquely human experience would you value most?
What is the one thing you would desperately want to feel, create, or share with another human being?
Because whatever that answer is, an entirely new multi-billion-dollar industry is about to spring up, simply to help you figure out what to do with all your newfound time.